This is part 7 of The Reader, the final part. That night, Ellery lay awake in bed, tracing the shadows cast by headlights of passing cars that ambled across the wall, bending the patterns of the window frame, accompanied by the lonely peal of tires that faded off into the barren streets. Their last encounter had confused her. She wondered why he had disappeared after climaxing and retreated to some other place in the large house to compose himself, reappearing fully dressed, completely devoid of the lingering sensuousness of orgasm. Eventually, though she would not recall when, sleep finally overtook her confusion, and she slipped off into dreams that would be squandered to the dawn. Friday saw her return to the familiar routine of her undressing before him, revealing yet another new garter of dainty lavender and frivolously adorned straps that held sheer stockings. The lingerie was augmented by a pair of steep black heels with straps that ascended her calves in shades of bondage. The reading had progressed well past the allotted 2 hours. They were now enjoying Jack London's South Sea Tales, from which Ellery was part way into The Whale Tooth. So deeply engrossed in the prose, the time got away from them, each unaware of the chiming of the grandfather clock in the other room. They both were suddenly pulled from their sweet reveries at the same time, for no apparent reason, like lovers who have fallen asleep after making love, who then stir simultaneously. After getting dressed and sharing their weekend brandy, Ellery met the man in the foyer. He pulled back the drapes of the front window to reveal the town car patiently and dutifully parked at the curb, the driver discreetly waiting for the princess concubine to appear and slide into the back seat of her carriage. Crossing the threshold of the old house, Ellery was tempted to break from protocol and dress him directly, to suggest going out somewhere, for a drink or dinner or perhaps just a walk. She felt her body about to stop, her mouth about to address him, but found herself still in motion, unimpeded, and then crossing the porch with things unsaid. She cringed at the horrible sound of the heavy door closing behind her, followed by the unretractable sound of the deadbolt sliding into its hole to lock out her temptation. She thought to herself, there would be more opportunities in the days and weeks ahead to suggest such things as men and women who care about one another do together. Yes, definitely, she thought to herself, she would gather her confidence and suggest a date, perhaps an outing together to the lingerie store, where she would try on various articles of sexy underwear for him to lust after. For a fleeting moment she imagined him reserving the entire shop for just the two of them to hold a private fashion show of tantalizing lingerie. As the Lincoln combed the back streets headed toward the little apartment across town, the sun was lower than usual, due to the fact that the reading had gone well past the allotted time, the two of them pleasantly consumed in the moment. The sun had dipped below the roof lines of the passing brownstones, the gaps between the buildings creating a picket fence effect that cast the interior of the car in a flickering of shadows, like spokes of a spinning wheel. Ellery didn't bother to open the envelope in her hands. She could feel that it held the $1,000. Her mind was still ruminating on the afternoon. There had been a deeper sense of closeness between them, an intimacy that had affected them both, as evidenced by their losing track of time. What stirred her most was the look on his face when she raised her eyes from the pages of the book and saw in his eyes the unmistakable look of love. For all the charged energy of their previous visits, the various detours into kinky sexuality and savoring of private fetishes, he wore the expression of deep longing, as if he simply wanted to kiss her, to hold her. Ellery thought to herself, as her fingers handled the envelope, that she would gladly trade the contents for just one kiss from him. The weekend passed slowly. Despite sunny weather, warm temperatures, and clear skies, Ellery spent the majority of it indoors. She napped a little more than usual, absently thumbed the pages of a new book she was reading, and went for several walks, dreamily recounting the previous weeks, remembering with clarity the various ventures into exhibitionism to appease his voyeuristic whims. On Sunday, the eve of their next visit, Ellery decided she would take action. She could easily and happily continue with the erotic tryst, pleasing him in all his most lavish fetishes, explore as many variations of arousal as he so wished, but what she couldn't bear was to be without the simple intimacy of touch that came with love. He had unwittingly worn her down by sheer attrition. By allowing her to come to this on her own, without the all too familiar pushiness of men, he had defeated her normally protected disposition and iron will. She was in the throes of a deeply profound longing for his attentions, to consummate with words and actions an affirmation of mutually shared caring. She wanted nothing more now than to finally feel his hands on her breast, her ass, between her legs. She wanted his scent to be entwined in hers and to feel those strong hands of his over her entire body. And that face. She wanted to crush him with kisses, to smother the breath out of each of them, close to suffocating, and then recover to smother again, to be engulfed in everything that had been kept from her these past weeks. Sitting naked and vulnerable before him, she had flawlessly performed the ritual, entertaining his whim. Now, though it meant a betrayal of their agreement, she was going to touch him, and have him touch her. Midday Monday, as she dressed, Ellery took special attention with the application of her perfume, walking her naked body into the spray of clouded mist, letting it fall over her. In dressing, she took a certain joy in rolling her stockings up over her taut calves and up around her thighs, then clasping the snaps of the garter. In the mirror was the reflection of her neatly trimmed pubic hair framed by the straps of the garter. She savored with determined mind the private little joys of these simple tasks, as they were all a foretaste to the grand encounter she was orchestrating in her imagination. Descending the steps of her apartment building to the town car idling at the curb, the sheer stockings and lacy garter were her little secret beneath her clothes, each move of leg and swing of hips sending stirring sensations up her spine from the pleasant rub of the garter. She hadn't bothered with panties, wanting to be naked beneath her skirt when she pressed up against him. The familiar routine, the climb up the cement steps to the porch of the grand house, was followed by the ringing of the doorbell. Ellery was brimming with nervous anticipation for his imminent arrival at the door and his gesturing arm that would welcome her once again into their secret netherworld where ordinary, banal life and its dull imitations of love could not touch them. As the chimes rang through the massive house, it introduced the familiar sound of his footsteps against the hardwood floor. When the door was unbolted and swung open, standing there was not the man, but a stranger. He looked at her quizzically. "Yes?" he asked. "May I help you?" An uneasy feeling coursed through Ellery. The upset in the balance of their practiced routine confused her. Her mind quickly surmised that this disruption in habit carried an ominous foreboding. Her words ended there, replaced by a new and pressing thought. "Where is Mr. Again the words were stifled. Ellery had to search her mind for the man's name, as she had only uttered it once, upon their first meeting. Before she could sort her thoughts and place them in the words, the stranger spoke. "I'm sorry, but the man of the house has passed on." "Passed on," Ellery heard herself saying, as if the words were coming from someone else. "But—" A heart stoppage, the stranger came back, with genuine compassion. "When?" Ellery asked, dumbfounded, the excitement of her planned seduction of the man replaced by a somberness that descended on her like a cruel, thick fog. "This past Saturday evening," the stranger spoke, standing in guard at the threshold, which had suddenly grown cold and unwelcoming. "Pardon me for asking, but what was your relation?" Ellery was still digesting the windfall of information. It took her a moment to compose her thoughts. "I worked. I read for him," her voice labored. "Are you Ellery?" the stranger asked, with a kind of vague recognition. "Yes," she answered, voice cracking and unsure, as if her name was just some hollow thing like a borrowed code or one of the unused coffee cups in the back of a cupboard. "He left something for you." On that the stranger disappeared into the house she knew so well but was now apparently barred from, given that no invitation had been extended. Her duties here now terminated. In her mind she saw the stranger entering the study to retrieve whatever it was the man had left for her. The stranger would be unaware, as he crossed the room, of the lovely hours she had spent naked before the man. To him it was merely a room with cherry-wood shelves filled with books. When the stranger returned, he was carrying 3 books in his hands. They were warmly familiar. the 3 novels she'd read to him: Herman Melville's White Jacket, a Conrad Argosy which held the secret share, and South Sea Tales by Jack London, from which they were partway through The Whale Tooth. She took the books from him, their weight requiring both of her hands. And on that the stranger said, as politely as he could, "I'm terribly sorry for your loss." Ellery didn't bother to inquire any further about the man or to ask what relation the stranger was to him and the house. A lawyer, perhaps, an accountant. It didn't seem to matter. All she knew was that the man was gone. The driver of the town car had watched the interaction on the porch and knew something had happened. When she turned and began retreat to the car, he got out and waited for her. Descending the cement steps for the last time, the books held close against her chest, Ellery's mind was flooded with images of her time in the study. Just a few days previous they had enjoyed such a perfect afternoon, losing track of time like children playing, unaware of the goings-on in the world outside the safe sanctuary of the old house. As the town car somberly maneuvered the streets, absorbing the potholes and uneven pavement, Ellery gazed at the city with its pedestrians in perpetual hurried movement. The 3 books were cradled in her lap, and she absent-mindedly stroked them with her fingertips. They weighted her lap with a comforting reassurance, like that of the man resting his satiated body across hers. It then dawned on her. The unusually intimate moments she had shared with this man had been deeper and truer than that of the lovers that had come and gone from her bed, their declarations of devotion and forever-lasting love having all proved empty and erroneous. She then realized that in all their time together, posed naked before him, they had only touched but once, when they first met and exchanged that cursory handshake. "Pardon me," Ellery spoke softly. The driver craned his head slightly, his eyes observing her in the mirror. "We won't be needing the car service any longer." On hearing herself say those words, Ellery began to cry. The town car slipped through the streets, past all the people unaware of the great love that had unfolded in their midst, unaware of such lovely and simple moments that were capable between a man and a woman. The end. I hope you've enjoyed that, and please subscribe, and I will be reading another novella in the coming days. Thank you so much.